Coming up on CTV News, financial difficulties for many and more Canterburyans are relocating. Welcome to CTV News. I'm Rob Cope-Williams. Visitor arrivals to Christchurch are down and now more and more Canterburyans are relocating overseas.
More than double the number of Christchurch's residents moved overseas in March than that of last year. About 1,100 Christchurch residents moved overseas in March, compared with 500 at the same time a year ago. Visitor arrivals to New Zealand were down 11% in March, and nearly double of the usual number of Christchurch residents left the country either permanently or on long-term departures. New migration figures released by Statistics New Zealand show that some 18,700 people left Christchurch on short-term overseas trips in March, up from 13,300 the previous year. The decrease has been attributed to the quake. Overall, the country has seen about 12,000 fewer visitor arrivals from countries such as Australia, Britain, Japan and other Asian areas.
Māori wardens swung into action after the quake, with many arriving from around the country.
We went out into the community, we went house to house to house. We went to see exactly what the people in that community needed. We didn't make assumptions, so we went out, as we said, we rocked up, we knocked on the door, we asked them what assistance they needed. While we were out there, we did a quick overhaul of their home. The outside was structurally safe and fine, and if we managed to have a quick look on the inside, we would do that. It just really depended on how that person felt, because that is their home. Most would say, I'm fine, I'm okay, my neighbours down the road would need something, but you just persevere with them and go, look, I have some food in our trailers, would you like some food? I have some fresh water, I have a blanket, whatever. And you can, but they will agree to take something at the end. We went to every house and everything. When the earthquake struck in February, it didn't have a race relation thing. We went everywhere. So we've seen everyone on all races. We had Maori wardens from the top of the North Island to the bottom of the South Island. And we were just so humbled that they all agreed to come here and help us in our own home kāinga. It was most welcome and it was most needed. We did not have the resources to be able to go out and go house to house to house, which is what we really needed to do. And we needed to get out there fast.
Coming up after the break, financial problems for many and a book fundraising for the quake. Architectural Ambassador Ian Athfield has met with business leaders to outline his vision for rebuilding Christchurch.
Certainly we have some high-rise buildings now which have they've remained intact, some of them completely, and some of them are on a bit of a lean, and it's a lot to do with the quality of the land under their foundations and the foundations which were made for these buildings. So we may see some of those buildings determined by them coming down, but in the future, you know, high-rise buildings will be just as safe as low-rise buildings, and possibly even more so.
Mr. Athfield says building designers need to take more notice of what's under them.
There is foundations down, you know, 15, 20, 25 metres. There's very good foundations. And high-rise building technology would mean that, you know, you'd get a very, very safe building if you can found it on those that rock base.
He says discussion about a low-profile city is an option.
Well, I think it's a pretty good goal at this stage. There are a lot of people who have been quite worried about being in any building over one floor, and we're not going to get too many people who would be keen to go back into a tall building unless they're completely assured that it's going to be safe. Certainly high-rise buildings are part of any city, and they certainly preserve land on the outskirts. I took on this job when the Institute of Architects asked me to look at being the architectural ambassador to coordinate the design after the 4th of September earthquake. And we looked at it and felt that the big things were those issues which actually formed a framework for the city. And they were ones like land use and liquefaction, and what land we should be using in the future when we build, especially low-rise buildings in suburbs. How heritage can inform but not dictate, you know, so that's about proportion and relationships to their neighbours, which heritage has done in the past very well. Housing typologies, which actually looks at the type of houses we live in. Are we providing enough variety for the social climate we have now, where many of our houses are built around the nuclear Christian family? Urban design, which is talked about a lot, but I think it's a knowledge base for everyone, not the knowledge base for a new profession. And the last of all is roading, transport and infrastructure, which I have spoken out about.
With businesses folding and jobs vanishing, many are left with serious financial problems.
In a difficult read, after September 4 we expected quite an upsurge in business, which was starting to happen, and then February 22 come along and things have gone quiet again, mainly because we were off the air for 6 weeks like a lot of people. But we are noticing now that clients are coming back to us. The job losses are just starting to happen because I'm aware that the government subsidies are starting to run out. So our organisation and other similar organisations are expecting an increase in people wanting assistance.
Like a lot of agencies, Budget Services has relocated.
We've actually found ourselves a temporary office, which is not much good for interviewing clients, but our paid advisors are working from home and at various temporary offices around the city. If people contact us, we can set it up. We're also dealing with clients in their own home, and we find that most clients feel very comfortable with this because they're in their own territory and they feel more comfortable. A lot of people have got a big mortgage, they've got hire purchase, they've got credit loans, they've got credit cards, and they have overdrafts, and their incomes have been cut. So you have a shortfall. Where they were managing, it is no longer a possibility for them until things sort of settle down. What we do is we sit down with them and we go through, gather all the information, take it away, analyse it and bring back a plan. We are an organisation that is totally free for people to use. We are non-judgmental, so we put a plan in front of people and give them options. We would never presume to tell them what they should or shouldn't do. If things get really serious and something like insolvency looms, we have trained crisis advisors that can walk people through this process. It's like a lot of issues that people face. Once they face the issue and start talking about it and doing something about it, it seems to get a bit easier. You know, I would say to anybody who's got a financial problem at the moment, don't sit at home and brood on it. Give our service a ring and we can organise some help for them. And talking your way through it is sometimes the easiest thing, and sometimes an independent person will see a solution to the problem.
Coming up after the break, the new alliance is operational and we'll have a look at the fire service. Welcome back. The alliance agreement, which was signed this week, is now operational.
Well, the Alliance Connector is a form of contracting. We want to obviously get stuck into the process of rebuilding the infrastructure in the city, the roads and the pipes. And this was described by the ministers as the horizontal infrastructure of the city, which is an intriguing term, but it's a good descriptive term. How can we do it as quickly as possible but minimise the cost to our ratepayers when we don't exactly know what they're going to find as they continue to dig the roads up? So you need a contracting model that reduces the risk to the ratepayer and the taxpayer and the insurance companies, I suppose, because they're all part of funding the rebuild, but gets the work done. So you effectively create a contract where we've got 5 major players. They're all partners in the contract. It means that you can put people, plant and expertise wherever you most need it. They work together in a partnership model. And it is a way in which there is a percentage, if you like, as opposed to a fixed contract, so that there is a return that they can expect on their work, but there are incentives for them to perform that task in a very timely way. So effectively, wrap it all up, we've got an efficient model that should get things done more quickly and expose the ratepayer and the taxpayer to less unknowns than probably any other contracting system. And a great example was it was used for the Newmarket Viaduct in Auckland. This was the approach they used there. Big public interface, lots of disruption, but they finished the job under budget and well ahead of schedule, and that's the sort of thing we'd like to see happening here.
So how are things going? I mean, the state of emergency finished on Saturday.
Not wearing the orange jacket
You're
anymore,
not wearing the orange
so
jacket. You look
took that
sharp.
off. You look sharp, you reckon?
Yeah.
I don't know.
How are things going?
I think it's going very well. It's a huge task. Everybody says that, so I don't need to re-emphasise that. But there's some wonderful opportunities coming our way as a city, and the tragedy that we've been through has to have something positive for us, for goodness sakes, and it does. Inside the 4 avenues, the community will join with the council and a number of stakeholder groups, and we're going to begin the process in just over a couple of weeks now of downloading all of our community's visions, hopes, aspirations, concerns, ideas for how we could rebuild inside the 4 avenues, what it might look like, how it should work well, you know, what are the things that you would look for in the central city, what would bring you in there. And I think that's a really exciting creative phase, and we need that as a city. We've got to the point where we've had to cope with more than just about anybody else has ever had to cope with, and we're now moving to a phase where we can see some real positive return for that. So I'm really excited, and I think our people deserve some good news for a change.
We reflect on the amount of work that the fire service has done and the members who came from around the country.
It was hugely important in terms of some of our lessons learned, also more of the resilience and being able to respond on such a massive scale. It was the largest ever deployment of New Zealand Fire Service resources from the entire country and naturally the international community.
Were you in town? Were you the one that was directing it?
Initially in February, I was actually in Wellington. I had just finished presenting on the September 4th earthquake to an emergency management conference and was choppered back along with Superintendent Dave Cliff from the police and Chris Haynes from ambulance. The panel of 3 of us had been there.
Gosh.
So I got flown back in, so I got a really good overview in terms of 90-minute flight time in terms of receiving information and flying over the city and getting a first-hand look at what had occurred, and then by 5 o'clock on base and taking over the responsibility and the deployment of resources.
So was USAR involved right away as well?
Yeah, essentially what happens is we have fire service staff members who have a set of specific skill sets which are done through USAR. They all carry pages so they can be called upon outside of their normal rostered hours. In that initial first few hours, it was fire service staff that had USAR skill sets working alongside everybody else at the sites. And as the deployment of the teams both in the North Island and the remainder of the off-duty staff into the USAR team, they then came into play. By about midnight that night, USAR teams from across the country were on site.
Canterbury retailers are suffering, but there is a support system in place for them.
Our association's role here is to help every retailer who we can in the Canterbury area to definitely recover where they can, and also if we can help them to find temporary locations for their business as well. One of the biggest issues here has been the insurances, the leases, and also trying to find the right area for them to actually relocate.
How are you actually helping them? Are they coming to you specifically?
Yes, probably over the last month I've probably seen 65 to 75 retailers on a one-on-one sort of basis. We've gone through every part of their business to see where they actually can relocate. If they do, where they're going into the actual right target market area. Now, a lot of businesses out there today, especially from the actual city area, their target market may have been women, say, 18 to 35. Now, for them to relocate their business out into an area where they don't have that passing trade, we really have to think twice whether that's a viable proposition for them to actually go. One of the other areas that we're having a bit of problem is that, unfortunately, there's a few hungry landlords out there who are wanting a bit more than what their business is actually worth. So generally the actual retailer pays about 10% of their rent against their actual turnover. So if a business is doing in town, say 800,000 and the rent may have been 80,000, these landlords are wanting up to 150 and 160,000. Now, not all of them are, don't get me wrong, but some of them are, because the spaces are very, very hard to actually get. So we're having to say to that retailer, can you sublease that building if you actually get that building, because it will obviously make it a lot better for you. Other retailers out there in some areas out there are finding the crunch, and the crunch is going to be there for a while. So they're saying, look, we're happy to sublease our buildings now. So if you get the right business in there to run along your one, that's good. That's great.
And now here's your local weather forecast.
Evening everyone, thanks for joining us. It was a little warmer around the region today with clear skies for a change, but another cold front and low pressure system is developing over the Tasman Sea. Highs in the high teens there. Hanmer was the warmest, reaching 20 degrees, while the west reached a cooler 17. Looking to tomorrow now, cloudy and cool in Kaikoura with some scattered rain throughout the day. We see light easterlies and a high of just 15. Hanmer gets its share of the cloud cover and scattered rain too. Northeasterly winds and that high expected to reach just 14. Scattered rain in North Canterbury with light northeasterlies and a cool 15-degree high. That low down to 9 overnight tonight. Take a coat or an umbrella with you tomorrow in Christchurch, as we expect scattered showers throughout the day. Light northeasterlies with a high of 15 degrees. In Ashburton, light rain and cloud cover make for a rather grey and dull Friday. Light winds with a high of just 15. There's rain throughout the day in Timaru as well. Light northeasterlies and cloud with a high of 15 degrees. Looking to other areas now, showers or rain is about throughout the region with temperatures peaking at just 15 degrees. Cool overnight tonight in Culverden with a low there of just 7. Looking ahead to the weekend now, thankfully it's mostly dry but rather cloudy on Saturday. Some light rain is expected in the afternoon, so make the most of that morning. Moderate northerly or northeasterly winds. Sunday's looking better, sunny periods and high cloud with moderate westerly or northwesterly winds and pleasant temperatures. That's your weather everyone, have a lovely evening.
That's CTV News, I'm Rob Cope-Williams.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.